Steve Valdez is the founder and CEO of Save Point Ministries, an organization that has the goal of helping nerds plug into nerdy-friendly churches by connecting people digitally with physical church families. He served as a youth and young adult pastor for 10 years before starting Save Point in November of 2022. Steve is a card-carrying nerd fluent in several areas, including video games, comics, film and television, Star Wars, board and card games, and more. Please welcome Steve Valdez to the Nerd Culture Ministry Summit.
We messed up, church. We messed up. We boned it. We done beefed it hard. It's funny because when I was contacted to come and be one of the keynote speakers here, the conversation was, we're going to have churches here. We're going to have pastors here, people who are really interested in utilizing this nerd culture ministry to help reach out, help do more in their community. And as time kind of passed, we started realizing something that's honestly one of my biggest hurdles with Save Point is, church, we don't take nerd culture seriously. People didn't take NCMS seriously. It was this branding that was brilliant. Everything looks fantastic. The advertising was out there. The reason was there. It was highlighted and shining. It should have been something people were clamoring to get to. And church, we just didn't take it seriously. Can you imagine if we did that with any other culture? Can you imagine if somebody came to church and said, man, on a couple times a week, me and my friends get together and we're in an intramural basketball league. Man, we love playing together and it's such a good time. And if a pastor then looked at them and said, basketball? I played that when I was a kid. Don't you think it's time to move on from that? Can you imagine if there's somebody who's passionate about cooking, right? Jacqueline talked about how much she loves baking. And then there was a potluck, and instead of bringing this beautiful creation, you felt embarrassed, and instead you went and got some Kentucky Fried Chicken, and you brought that because you felt shame about your passion. What other culture have we done this with? None. And yet here we are in a position where Susie and Mark and Nerd Pastor Nate and so many other incredible digital churches are out there, and they see people better than we see those people, when, get this, they can't even see those people. And here we are wondering, why are people leaving the church? Where are they going? What's happening? One of my favorite quotes I use in all manner of situations is, when is the best time to plant a tree? 50 years ago. What's the second best time? Right now. Right now. Because instead, we got some churches here, and I love it. I love that we got some churches here, but instead of churches, mostly what we got here are other nerds, digital ministries, streamers, things like that. But the beauty of this is the vast majority of us in here also are going to go home to a physical church. We're going to go home to a place where we have sat and maybe we are comfortable in. Maybe this is just one of those wonderful diamonds in the rough of a nerd-friendly church, and we're sitting comfortable in this place. But for a lot of us, we came here because that's been our dirty little secret in church, right? We came here to be seen because we're not seen there. So then what do? How do we take these things that we know, that we love, that we're passionate about, and how do we bring that back to our church to do something more? We have the knowledge. It reminds me of my dad. When I was 16 years old, I first started driving a car. And that year, my dad owned his own business. He's like, hey, you're going to work for me this summer, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. I have product binders that I want you just to drive out into Phoenix, Arizona, and just deliver them to different companies. So I'm like, yeah, sure. So I'd drive out, and I'd park, and I got the binders, so I take the keys out of the ignition, and, oh, hang on, I got to set them down and pick up these binders. And I'd get out, and I'd lock the car, and I'd close the door, and there are my keys. Yeah, there they are. Cool. And so what I'd have to do, I'd call my dad. My dad would come out with my spare key, and the first time, he was like, yeah, come on, man, you got to do better than that. The second time, come on, man. Third, fourth time. By the fourth or fifth time, he comes out, and he's holding my key in his hand, right? And he's like, it's lecture o'clock, my friend. We're going to have a talk, and it's going to be a long one. So here I am, and I'm already ashamed, right? I'm standing in front of my car feeling like a doofus, and my dad just leans into me. He just rails me. Fast forward 2 weeks. I go home. My dad says, hey, son, come sit down. All right, and so I come and I sit down. I wonder, am I in trouble again? What's going on here? And he says, I need to apologize to you. Because recently, I gave you a really hard time about locking your keys in your car, but I need to tell you what I did today. I went to a job site, and I had product that I want to show to them. And so I took my keys out of the car, and I set them down, and I realized, oh, I got to grab that product. And I pulled this stuff out, and I locked the door to my car, and I closed it, and I walked away, and I realized, yep, there are my keys. Yeah, they are. And so he, a man of pride, he does not call me. Oh, no, that's not going to happen, right? Absolutely not. I would never let him. I would have sat there for an hour and be like, you got to beg, child. Instead, he calls AAA. AAA comes out. I can never get through this story. AAA comes out, walks up to his car and says, hey, your window's open. And the guy goes, I'll be $50. Like, and he says, man, I scolded you so heavily for a mistake that I made. Well, hey, nerds in here, we have been mad at the church for a long time. I mentioned the phrase church hurt during a stream once, and somebody said, you know what sucks? That you used 2 words, church hurt, and everybody knows exactly what you mean. This is a common enough term that we all know exactly what you're talking about when we say church hurt. And we get mad about that, right? We know that it's there, but that means that we got to do something about it, right? We can't then turn around and lock our keys in the car too. So what are we going to do? How do we take what we've learned here, what we know already, and go back and help turn our church into a nerd-friendly church? Turn our place of worship into a place that somebody walks in and is seen for what they love. I got my laptop on stage like a savage. Hang on here, sorry about that. So, with all that being said, like I said, we got the knowledge. We know what we need to do. So I'm weird. I'm going to be talking to you guys, and I want to hear back from you. We don't have time for microphones. I'm a conversationalist. So if you're watching this on a stream, deal with it. I don't know. You should have been here, scrub. But so I'm sorry if you can't hear the crowd, though. But so with all this being said, what is some knowledge that you have that you never use? Something that you know that you never, and don't know, stop. Because all of you are going to be like, Star Wars trivia. I hung out with you here. That's a lie. You use it all the time. Don't give me that. Knowledge that you have that you never use. What do we got? Something shout it out. What do we got? Yeah, man. Fiberglass columns. That's niche, man. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. What you got? Oh, trigonometry. That's mine. Yeah, 100%. I was in honors calculus in high school. I can't even tell you what calculus means anymore. I got nothing, man. Someone else. Knowledge you know that you never use. What do we got? Turtles too, quote, liar. You use that, Matt. I know you. So, yeah. All right, last one, Alf. What you got, brother?
Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Yes, say it with me. Mitochondria is the... We all use it. We all use it every day. Why do we use it? I still don't know. This is knowledge that we have that we never use, and it's the same thing with our nerd culture when it comes to the church. This is knowledge that we have that when our pastor talks to us, we wish that he would ask us about Marvel movies, but we don't use it in that situation. So how do we use it? How do we use this knowledge to help grow our church? Well, first and foremost, and hey, like I said, a lot of this is going to have the thumbprints of me talking to church pastors. It really is. It's going to have the thumbprints of me talking to an entire church, and it's going to seem really overwhelming in a lot of situations. Please, don't try to do all of this. My challenge to you is to pick one of these things that we're going to be talking about and be like, I want to do that. I want to do that thing right there. So, first thing first, we got to find a demographic, right? We got to find what aspects of nerd culture is popular in our community. I was talking to my man Tony right here. And he was saying, like, yeah, I came here, invited my friends, but then I kind of used the word convention. And they thought it was going to be like cosplayers and stuff, and they didn't want to do that because we're mostly just into video gaming. And that's what I mean by finding your demographic. You got to make sure you're meeting these people where they're at. So if you want to reach people in Texas, you got to go to Texas. If you want to reach people in Oregon, you got to go to. If you want to reach people in Canada, you got to go to. Sorry, the answer is a hockey game to that one. It's a hockey game, and that's the answer to that question. No, you got to be where these people are. You got to find out your demographic. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do this. First and foremost, one of the great ways that we can do this is just to go and talk to our ministry leaders in our church. Go and have a conversation with somebody who helps lead the ministries. Again, I'm going to go back to Tony right here. He's also the young adult pastor in his church, the college age. And he knows that the college-age guys play Valorant because he's right there with them. And so if you're thinking to yourself, man, I really wish I could get a group of college-age guys that I can kind of help mentor or I can just hang out with or whatever you want to do, go to your college-age pastor or go to your Bible study leader and say, hey, when they're alone and on their own, what do they talk about? When you are 10 minutes before or 10 minutes after your Bible study, what sort of conversations are they having? Hey, when you ask them what they did that weekend, what do they say? And the beauty of being able to utilize ministry leaders in this space is then you actually start getting like deeper demographics. You can specify a college pastor, a men's pastor, a women's pastor. When you talk to the men, do they say that they get together to play D&D and then the girls get together and they play party games or vice versa or whatever it is? Whatever this is, when you talk to these people, you start to get an idea of what's going on. But we can't actually just focus inside of our church. We got to look outside as well, right? We got to see what other people are doing out there. So, explore your friendly local game store. FLGS. These people are fantastic. I cannot raise up FLGSs enough. Look, nerds, I love you. I am you. We can be hard sometimes. It's just the reality of the matter. We can be a little rough. And when you get like 40 of us in a room in a competition, we can get really rough sometimes. And yet there are some people who love us every week and serve us every week. They didn't open that game store to make money, I promise you that. They opened that game store because they love what they're doing and they love the people that go into it. And so if we want to know how to love those people, go ask them. Walk in and say, hey, what events do you have that get the most people? Is Chris in here? Chris from Gilded Greyland? He's not, whatever. I didn't want you in here, Chris, but it's fine. Go in and ask, hey, what events get the most in your church? If you were to come to me in my area, Troutdale, Oregon, and be like, hey, man, I would love to start a Yu-Gi-Oh club. And I would be like, oh, my sweet summer child. Ain't gonna happen. I'm sorry, that's not the one here. But if you were to come in my store and you were to say, hey, Steve, I love Commander, the Magic the Gathering format. Man, I love Commander. I'm gonna say, now you're cooking with fire. Now we're gonna be doing something awesome here. So we start exploring these friendly local game stores, asking them what kind of stuff, what kind of games sell the most? What are some of your best community building games? Spoiler alert, Chris already did that for you. If you're somebody right now who's saying, yeah, that board game thing sounds like a great idea, what games are going to be great for community building? Chris has already got kits out there pre-built for you to go, and you can just take that home with you, and you check that off the list. So talk to these people. These are the people that you want to be having conversations with. Talk to local schools. Now, this one can be tough, right? This is a rough one, because you don't want to pull up in a car outside of a playground, roll down your window and be like, hey, kids. What games you playing? You want to play them with me? You can't do that, right? You can't call a school and be like, yeah, my church has a basement. What games do your kids play that I can play them and lure those kids into the basement? Oh, did I say lure? I meant entice. Not better, you say. Okay, I'm so sorry, like that. Like, this is a real delicate thing that you got to go through, right? So I'm telling you right now, though, that ask about after-school programs. Call your school and say, hey, what after-school programs do you have? I'm at a local church, and I'd love to just see what kind of work that you guys are doing. What do kids do during these after-school programs? We got an organization in Oregon called Satellite Gaming. Jamie, I love you, brother. They go to local schools, and they have after-school programs where they just set up a slew of video games. They just set up screens, and they sit shoulder to shoulder with kids and play video games with them. Or maybe you call and you say, hey, what do you have to tell your kids to put away at the end of the lunch hour? What is it that when lunch ends and you got to go to them and you got to say, hey, guys, it's time, you got to pick up, you got to head out. Is it Pokemon? Is it their Switch? What is it that they're doing that I can then say, okay, I'm getting a better idea of what these students are doing? And hey, the easy way to do exactly this is just to go ask one of the students in your church. Just walk up, hey, and this is another thing that the church has done terribly, is just crowbarring apart the youth and the adult ministries. And so when an adult thinks about going to talk to a kid, it's like, yeah, but they're youths. They're feral, it's tough. But they're human beings that have loves and passions and all kinds of awesome things. And if you ask them, hey, what do you and your friends do when you just hang out, man? Like, if we wanted to bring something into the church that you and your friends would have fun doing here at the church, what would that thing be? Is Roblox, Minecraft, what is it? Talk to these people, and in doing these things, you're going to find a theme. You're going to start finding out, okay, I'm in a community where a lot of the adults are playing board games, a lot of adults playing Magic. Magic is this one that is actually kind of like bridging the gap in a lot of ways. Younger kids are playing a lot of video games. You're starting to deduce these things and figure out a demographic for your area. Once you've got that demographic, you're going to wake up your computer. There you go. Then you got to understand how to reach them. It's literally right there, Steve. So, question, again, I want to hear from you guys. Let's pretend it's like an Elks Lodge or your local YMCA, right? You open your mail that day, you got a flyer inside of there, and they want you to come to an event. What does that event have to be for you to go to it? Because if I open that up and it says community potluck, I'm like, think you know. Put that right back in there and close that, What does it have to be? And in fact, let's make this a little more complicated. Let's subtract nerd culture from this. Yeah. All of you guys are just like, no, never mind. I got nothing now. Let's subtract nerd culture from this. What's it got to be for you to actually want to show up to a place that you don't know anybody at, have never been to before? What do you think? What's got to say on that list? Matt, what do you got? Free food. All right, hey, free food. That's good. There you go. You don't got to bring your own. Mark. New brewery. Man, hey, we're Christians, so we're not allowed to talk about this, but same. Yeah. Oh, my man. I knew we'd be friends. My answer to this is, hey, if you were to tell me that you were starting like a disc golf, putt-putt, like mini golf type thing during the wet months of the year, I'm there. I'm there with you to practice my putt because it's bad, unfortunately. Free childcare, man. Hey, if you got that, put it up in bright lights on like a neon sign and start blinking that thing, and you'll have parents just clamoring out there. Swing dancing. Heck yes, my man. I'm into that. That's super cool. I love it. So, okay, swing dancing, free childcare, whatever it is, all sorts of things going on here that we could do. What are you afraid of when you show up? What do you think that if I go there, I'm kind of worried that this is going to happen? Extroverts, that's me. I'm so sorry, man. I'm the guy that's going to walk up to you and be like, hey, tell me everything about you. You look super uncomfortable. Come here. Like, yeah, that's me. What are you scared of, Matt? Jesus juke. Oof. Yeah, man. Hey, now that we've gathered you all here today, we wanted to tell you something. It's like, come on, man, just let me do the thing. Just let me do the thing. Anyone else? What are you afraid of? Yeah, what do you got?
No one shows up.
No, and it's just you. That is the real legit worst. And then there's like the 5 people that set this up, and it's just you there, and now you got this choice of, can I leave? What's that? You know, and you head out of there. Yeah, double up on that. Hey, folks, this is what everybody's feeling when we invite them to church. This is exactly what's going through people's minds when we are trying to bring people into our building. We can't just say all church picnic and send flyers out because people are going to be like, yeah, but what if I bring the wrong food, or if I wear the wrong shirt, or if they Jesus juke me since y'all are here, or whatever else. These are the things going through people's heads before they're willing to enter your building. So before we can even do these things that we want to do, we have to understand, how do I actually reach these people? So, let's see here. I don't know how we reach these people. Hang on, let me double check with myself, right? I know I do need a mouse, for real, for real. First and foremost, ask your congregation for help. Get your congregation on board. That's going to be a huge part of this. Jacqueline already talked about this. You can't do this alone. You can't. If you're the only nerd in your church, I love you, but maybe wait until you can find some people to help you. Because you are going to burn yourself out so fast, and not just you, but your love for that thing. And then you're going to go back to it, and you're going to be like, man, remember when I used to do that? I just can't anymore. So you got to make sure that you're somebody who's looking out there, and maybe you got 2 or 3 friends, or maybe you got a group, or maybe you just get the pastor on board. Maybe you just say, hey, what support can I get from you? Get your church on board, get your congregation on board, have them helping you. Know what events people attend. That's a really big important one that we were talking about before. We got to know what people are actually going to come to. Do they go to TCG tournaments? Do they go to board game days? Do they go to video game clubs? If your local school has an after-school video game thing and nobody shows up to it, guess what? You shouldn't do it either. It's so common for churches these days to think that they're hip because they put, Nintendo Switches against the wall and line them up over there, and they're like, now all the kids are going to come. Here they come. But we have to understand, will they? Is that what this community is doing? So make sure that you know what sort of events people are already attending, that they're already a part of. Here's a big one. I'm going to say it again. Utilize your friendly local game store. Please do this. Build a relationship with them. Get this. What if FNM, Friday Night Magic, it's like a weekly thing that Magic has established, if you don't know this. What if people show up to FNM, the Friday Night Magic, and there's a big old basket of cookies baked by old ladies from your church? And there's just the person who runs the game store, or maybe you're there too, and you just say, hey guys, I'm from the church down the way. We play casual Magic during second service on Sundays. Some ladies in our church bake these cookies for you. Help yourselves, man. And then afterwards, you stick around and you vacuum up the crumbs. You got to do that part too. What is that going to mean, not just to the game store, but to everybody there? What if you showed up to that local game store and you said, hey, I want to buy 2 cases of energy drinks from you. I want to support you. I want to buy 2 cases of energy drinks for you. So tonight during D&D, when you got a couple of D&D games running, anybody needs to just walk out and grab one. And just let them know, hey, it's on us. We'd love to see you at church sometime. when we can be reaching out into these specific areas that people are already attending these events, we start understanding, hey, if they're going to do it there and we let them know that we love them, maybe they're also going to come here. Maybe we can also show them that they will be just as accepted and loved here as they are anywhere else. Now, let's say that you've done these things, you've found out your demographic, you've talked to your local game store, you've gone and you've found ways to work together with them to help bring people into your building. You've got this figured out, and now people are coming. They're actually coming, and they're showing up, and you have game days, and you have Magic the Gathering tournaments, and you have all kinds of great things going on. That's awesome. Here's the problem, though, is there's still a follow-through that we have to do. In the New Testament of the Bible, there's two words for the word fellowship. We all know koinonia. Jacqueline, what does koinonia mean? Tell us what koinonia means. Means fellowship. That's right. It means fellowship, right? But here's the thing. There's another word, medoke. Medoke also means fellowship. It's found one time in the New Testament. It's saying, can dark have fellowship with light? And so we have this thing where we see these two very important Greek words in the Bible. They're both beautiful and wonderful things, but why are there two? What's the difference here? Medoke is a temporary community based around a common goal, and koinonia is fellowship that involves empathy and regular interaction. Here, this has been medoke, and it's been spectacular. I am not saying medoke is bad in any way, shape, or form. I love this. I've gotten to know so many of you people. I've gotten to know names. I've gotten to shake hands, and it's spectacular. I love you guys. It's been so great. But if my brother passes away, God forbid, I love you guys, but I'm probably not going to call you and say, hey, I need you for support right now. If I'm struggling financially and I need to talk to somebody about maybe you can help me out in this moment, I love you guys, but I'm not going to call any of you. We have medoke, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. We are united in a common goal. We are together building towards something that's beautiful, and I love that. Koinonia is something different. Holding gaming events, bringing people in to play Magic or D&D, that's going to be some beautiful, spectacular medoke. What you do in between rounds is what's going to make the difference. What you do when you roll the last dice, when you say this session is over, when you put the lid on the board game, that's how you bring people to koinonia. That's how you change from just this common goal of this love that we have, you change that to, and I also love you. I love you and I see you. Hey man, how are things going? How's school going? Hey man, you said you were dating this girl. How's that relationship going? How are things at home? You're looking for a job. How'd that go? You got that interview yet? Learn names. Learn friends' names. Learn the name of their dog. So when they show up and you say, hey, you talked about your sister Sarah last week. How is she? These are important things that say, I see you. I don't see this thing, just this game in front of us. You're not another mechanic to this thing that I'm trying to play. I see you. So we have to make sure that we are not just playing the games. I'm going to give you guys the tool to play the games. Hopefully you guys can take some of the stuff that you've got here and you can go back to your church and you can utilize these things to bring people in. When it comes to taking that to koinonia, that's got to be you. I can't tell you how to love the people that come into your church because I don't know those people. It's your job to know those people. And that's scary. And that's hard. And there's going to be some rough people that walk in the door. But you know what? You are a rough person that walked into the door of Jesus and he loves you. So when people walk in, know them, see them, and love them. And when we can do this, when we can start building this entire cycle in which we are seeing people, we're loving them, we're joining with them, we're bringing the Medoke into the koinonia. And all of a sudden, we've got a church that people can walk into and have no fear that they're wearing that Dungeons & Dragons shirt. They can walk into a church and they'll be like, my man, did you see the most recent episode of Ahsoka? Yeah, you know. We can walk into a church where we can feel loved and seen for everything that we love. And I'm telling you guys, when you start building a church that way, hey, get a hold of me. I'd love to talk to you more. Thanks, guys.
Steve, you can have a seat. I was unprepared. I'm coming, but I was unprepared.
So, Mark, what did you think?
I was so, every time before now, I did such a good job, and in this particular time, I did such a bad job.
I'm gonna pretend that it's because you were just so captured by what I was saying.
I was enamored.
That's exactly, we'll go with that.
It didn't have anything to do with the gushers I was eating. Totally had nothing to do with the gushers.
Hold on, you still got gushers?
No, I ate all of them and left the trash back there. Yeah, it's with Chino Mage. Okay, so I have a couple of questions because, I worked in the physical church for over a decade, and I was a nerd in that physical church, right? And so we tried to create inviting spaces for those people, and we had a lot of teenagers came in, like loved anime and stuff, and we learned how to love on them. That was all really good. But I also know what goes through the mind of a pastor, especially in a post-COVID world, right? And this doesn't have anything to do with digital. It just has to do with the fact that every pastor is still beat up from the last election cycle, right?
Love your pastors, y'all. Love them deeply, love them truly.
So we're all feeling a little burnout. There's been a tremendous amount. In church world, right, we have a tendency to look for silver bullets that are programmatic. So let's hypothetically say I'm a pastor. My church is already overly programmed. I know I'm looking for a simpler form of church. I do feel like it's important to reach this demographic, but how do I go about reaching this demographic without feeling like I'm just bogging my staff and myself down with another program to run?
So this is where it's important, number one, to be going out. Talk about reaching out to your friendly local game store, talk about going out to your schools, because if you're wanting to bring people in and then you set something up and you sit and wait like it's a trap, that's not gonna happen. It feels like a trap at that point, it really does. But to your other point of how do I do that without feeling bogged down, and that's where I was saying this, you gotta get your congregation involved. Susie said earlier, there's 3.2 billion gamers around the world. And of that, there are more that also play Dungeons & Dragons and that play board games and whatnot. And so if you're the pastor and you feel like, I got to do this, statistically, you should be able to stand up and say, who can help me? And you're going to have about a third of your congregation go, hey, right here.
I'm a nerd.
Yeah, me. And so at that point, you set up some real loose guidelines and you set up some oversight. That's really important. Make sure you have some oversight. And then you let them take care of it. And you trust them. And you peek in and make sure everything is going okay. But you gotta utilize your congregation. Again, you cannot do this alone. Statistically, you already have a team there that wants to help you.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, NCMS is actually a microcosm to show that what he just said, Steve just said, actually works. You want to know how we had Jacqueline and Mike and Magnus and such that were willing to come out here and speak and fly out here, like, most of them to take nothing for it. It's because they are also nerds, and they're like, oh, yeah, you're like, we have that common ground, right? And they're like, yes, I am also a nerd. And, we shouted out there, and people responded. Same exact thing happens inside of congregations. There are people that you literally do not know that are playing D&D who are in there. So let me ask you this, because becoming a nerd-friendly church is also more than... Maybe it could be nothing more than how can we be a blessing to the local game shop and buy all of the snacks in the fridge tonight, right? To give away, right? It could be no more than that. But if we actually want to invite people into our physical presence, right, and move from the two types of community that you were talking about, it's a cultural shift as well.
Yeah.
So what do I as a pastor do if I say, listen, I want to invite nerds in, but Jim, who comes to church, is sometimes a jerk, right? And I don't know how to change Jim. Like, it's going to take a cultural shift for my church to become a nerd-friendly church, not just me doing something. How do I shift the culture towards becoming nerd friendly and them seeing value in it?
So there's a real popular proverb in the book of Proverbs that's, above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. And people always try and take that and like tag it to dating, which it counts. It does work there, but that word heart is a Hebrew word. It's a lev. And what it really means is the core of who you are. Like that core of you being who you are. So the example I use in these circles is there are people that have Star Wars in their lev. And if you liken it to a Jenga tower, that means it's all the way at the base. And so when Rian Johnson comes in and makes a movie, it shakes the base, which then shakes everything else, which terrifies somebody, and that means they got to lash out. And they lash out because they feel like they need to protect everything because they have let something into the core of who they are. So Jim has probably let something into the core of who he is, whether it's witchcraft or whether it's frivolousy, that is all this stuff is bad, and therefore you can't be doing these things. And so what I tell people is, hey, you know what? You're not going to convince them about witchcraft or frivolousy any more than they're going to convince you. So instead of trying to say, no, it's not evil because, point at the other things in their lev, point at the other things in their core and say, this is what we're doing. Hey, Jim, you may struggle with this idea of video games, but I know you love community. I know you love it when young people are in our church. I know that you love it when we are building people up, and these game things that we're doing are doing all of those things. So if you could please maybe calm down that one part and look at all this other part where we are just meeting people where they are, we'd love for you to get behind us. We'd love for you to work with us, to partner with us.
I love that. And for the record, inside your church, you probably do have everybody's got a gym.
Oh, you got a gym.
You got a gym. Right?
At least one.
But bowing to the gym in this case and being afraid of the conversation of the gym in this case, what you oftentimes don't realize is what you lose that's unspoken. And what's unspoken is the other dozens of people who are in your church who are wondering how the church is going to reach their son or their granddaughter.
Absolutely.
And we've heard that echoed over and over again. I'm sure you have as well, Steve. If there's something that's going to reach my grandson, it's going to be you. Right, and so I need to be on board with whatever you're doing. So with that being said, SafePoint is helping identify nerd-friendly churches. I've heard you say, have somebody meet the nerd at the door, right, and be like, hey, I know that this person's going to be there when you get there, so you'll have a safe person to go sit with. The church experience will be better for you. So let's say I am a church, I'm listening to this later on, or I'm in the room, and I want to become part of that network. Like I want to say, hey, if you need a church in Austin, Texas for nerds to come to, we can be that nerd-friendly church. What do they do in order to start connecting with SafePoint and shift the culture of their church? Start working with you.
If you want to add your church to our network, you can come to SafePointMinistries.com. There's a button there that says add your church to your network or something like that. It's easily, my wife made it, which means it's very good. So it's easily navigable. You can find the spot.
Amen.
The form to fill out. And so you go there, but the important part that we want to do is it's not just me assuming. I want to make sure, I want to meet these people. A big part of what we also do is we want to build relationships with these pastors and ministry leaders as well. And so if you're going to do that, know that I'm also going to be contacting you. I'm going to want to meet you face-to-face or with Zoom, whatever that is. And hopefully, if you're willing, fingers crossed, host a stream with you on it. Because we don't want to just have you come in and be a part of the church and then we never talk to you again. We want to put you on a spot where you can look into the camera and say, hey, are you from the Austin area? Because we would love for you to come to First Baptist Church of Marble Falls. Are you in that area? Are you listening right now and you're from there? I would love for you to be there. Being able to look into that camera, taking advantage of parasocial relationships, that idea that even though that person online doesn't actually know who you are, you feel like you're friends. You can kind of take advantage of that parasocial relationship idea where you look into the camera and you personally invite them to that building. It makes a big deal. It makes a really big difference. And so you add your church to our network, I'm going to contact you, and hopefully you'll be willing to stream with me where you can start inviting people in.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes to be able to take a couple of questions. So if we have questions, let's go over. Yeah, okay, that's fine. You do whatever you want to do.
No, Matt, come over here.
Yeah, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
All right. So I go to a large church. Been going there for about a year and a half, 2 years now. Getting myself integrated into it. Got a good relationship with one of the pastors. All that sort of stuff. Currently, I am going to a Sunday school class to do small group leadership training. And a lot of the stuff that we've been going over is stuff that I've been absorbing. It was like, how can I use that and all of that sort of stuff. My question to you is, even with this large church with 3 services a week and all that, so I don't see everybody, I'm not sure who the nerds are in my church, and I would love to do nerd events like this. So how do I go about finding them? Do I convince the leadership to let me host an event and see who comes? Or should I try to locate the nerds in the church first?
Mid-sermon, run on stage. No. So, this is the way, yeah. With the stormtrooper helmet on, yeah. We're also trying to eat a hot dog. Just
you'll be arrested anywhere but Nurch.
You will go to super jail. So, no, my recommendation to you would be to, number one, contact a pastor. Say, hey, what would you be comfortable with in my church? Pastors, I was one for a little more than a decade. We can kind of get a little protective of our church and our ministry. And if we were to suddenly just find out that somebody's been planning something and doing things, be like, why didn't they just talk to me? I would have loved to help. So yeah, you said you got a pastor buddy, go talk to him and see if you can find a way to get an announcement out there. Maybe it's got to be, maybe you're not going to shout out, Dungeons and Dragons group in your church bulletin or something like that, but maybe it does say, hey, we're looking to build a nerd culture ministry in our church. If you're willing to help, come, talk to this person. Or, hey, during second service, my recommendation is always try and hold it during a time when they would already kind of be there, whether it's just after first service or something of that nature. But during second service, whatever else, we just want to chat and talk to people who are into this culture and how we can grow that. So talk to your pastor, see if he can help recommend a way for you to get that word out to your congregation, and then plan some time to meet together and talk about how it's going to work.
Awesome. Yeah, right here.
Hello.
Hi.
I know we're trying to break away from programs and from formulaic type thinking, but I don't know how to ask the question where it's not in that realm. But essentially, at my church, let's say I find some older pastors or some older leaders that really want to engage with students. They really want to engage with nerds. What are your thoughts about, I guess, a kind of training? You know what I mean? And that's what I mean. It's well, that sounds, kind of icky.
I got you. I got you. I think, I can't remember who was saying this. I think it was Bubba, or it might have been you, Mark, who was saying that you can't pretend. If you're going to go up and you're going to say, I too roll the dice. You're going to look like Steve Buscemi walking up doing the hello, fellow kids. It's not, they're going to sniff you out a mile away. And so what do? You find something that they enjoy. You don't try to force them to like anything. I promise you, there's a game for everybody. Everybody. And so you tell them, hey, you want to try video games? You don't? That's not even going to work for you? Let's pick up some board games. Cool, let's go through one of them. Let's play some together. You guys love these handful of games? Hey, here we are. We did it. We figured something out. Hey, you guys are actually way into D&D? We did it. We figured it out. So whatever it is, get them involved. Teach them not how to reach people. Teach them the game itself. Nerd culture, I've said this a lot to people out here. Nerd culture is inherently communal. It is something that it all by itself builds community. Even if you're playing a single-player, story-driven game, whatever it is, if I then tell you the new God of War made me cry, I got some heads shot up, right? We already want to talk about this. We already are having this conversation. So utilize that fact. Teach them the game. Don't try to teach them how to manipulate people or whatever else. Teach them the game, and let the game do the rest of the work to bring them into the Medoke, and then build that relationship to the koinonia.
Yeah, we got time for probably 5 more minutes, 1 more, 2 more. Let's go over here and then over to Susie. We'll be done there.
Wait, where am I going?
Right here.
Oh, we are here.
Josh.
Mine will probably be quick. What do you think about using, because nerd culture knows nerd culture, and we're talking about not being fake, using elements that we know to help us identify, like asking, hey, if you're interested in chatting in Discord in a bulletin, here's my Discord server or my Discord name. Or, hey, would anybody like to venture into the Forgotten Realms? If so, reach out to me. What do you think about doing specific elements to help identify those in the church initially?
I think it's brilliant. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Again, talk to your pastor. I don't know if you are a pastor. Talk to people in leadership, because if you find a way to sneak in who wants to play D&D, and your pastor's not comfortable with that, it's going to become a problem real quick. So just make sure that you're talking to your pastor about these things. They're involved with it, at least supporting you in it. But then after that, yeah, saying in your bulletin saying, hey, what's your name, brother? Josh is here and part of our church, and he would love to connect with some more people on Discord. Here's his Discord handle. Hey, he'd love to sit down with some folks. I use the phrase TTRPG a lot, tabletop role-playing game, because it's not the phrase D&D. So that's what I go to. So he wants to join with some folks to play TTRPGs, whatever it is. Connect with your pastor, but then, yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I just want to tap on that a little bit, too. If you are a pastor in here, fly the flag.
That's
fly
right.
the nerd flag when you have the opportunity, right? When I would walk through Disney with my kids earlier this year, there was like a head nod between me and other dads we were both flying the nerd flag on our T-shirt, right? And so similar is like two guys who are in Jeeps wave at each other when they go past one another, right? Nerds know nerds. And so do it appropriately to a certain extent, right? You don't want to preach with a stormtrooper helmet on, for example. But maybe, unless it's a really good analogy, which it might be. Listen, if you wear this, you can't hit it. I don't know. There's something in there to preach. But, you know, I would just pick out my favorite nerd-friendly shirt, and I would preach in it. Like, when I go to my physical church, I wear my LTN shirt almost all the time, because there's somebody who comes through, and they're like, oh, like literally someone this past week was like, hey, I've seen with your shirt, will you talk to my son? He's a gamer. Like, and I just got a chance to connect with him for a little while. So, yeah, 50% off. Go pick up an LTN shirt. Today, yeah. Grab a nerd shirt, go donate.
Right.
Yeah. Let's go over here to Matt.
Steve, you're a legend. Appreciate the talk, man. And love the use of the friendly local game store. Think it's brilliant. Question, amen.
Real quick, my money-making job is I work at an FLGS. And so I have been able to utilize my church in some ways and partner with them in some ways. Like, we're having a community game night coming up, and our game store is saying, hey, take all of our demo games. It's fine. Take all of our demo games, take them to your church, and just put out, here's some of our pamphlets about our game store. And yeah, that's outstanding. So absolutely utilize your friendly local game store.
Love it. I know that especially this weekend, I've had conversations with people about, like, hey, how do we start doing some of this stuff, like, in our church, setting up computers, setting up tabletop games. In your experience when trying to partner with these friendly local game stores, how do you avoid some of the maybe potential competition of, like, hey, we want to come in and buy some snacks, but secretly we're trying to get these customers to do at our church for free what they normally come here to pay to do? How have you kind of combated that so that your intentions come off pure to these local game stores instead of competitive?
That's a great question, and the answer is don't. Don't hold your events on Friday night. Let them go to FNM. Don't bring a case of energy drinks. Buy it from them. Whatever it is, make sure, hey, can I get your schedule? We put out a weekly calendar at both our stores. There's all things going on at both our stores. Grab that calendar, look at it, and say, where do they have empty spots? That's where we can do stuff. Partner with them. Don't do anything against them. Partner with them. Tell them, we would love to help bolster you. Even, again, you hold this event and they give you your demo games, tell them, hey, we'd love to make sure that people let you know that you're the ones who donated it. Love on them, support them, do not compete with them.
Awesome, awesome. Can we give Steve a round of applause, just thanking him for wrapping up NCMS for us? Awesome job, man. Appreciate you, Steve. Appreciate what you're doing with SafePoint.